Morning has broken, all windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow? I turn to you and hope you can guide the way. Sometimes I give up, just wanna be on my own. Even in the darkest times, you give me hope. So I lean on you when I've lost my way. I keep holding on for a better day. I lean on you when the world's astray. I left my heart open so you hear my prayer. I left my heart open so you hear my prayer. In times that are changing and when hope is fading, I know I can turn to your embrace. 'Cause there's so much beauty under your heaven, and I'm grateful every day. Sometimes I give up, just wanna be on my own. Even in the darkest times, you give me hope. So I lean on you when I've lost my way. I keep holding on for a better day. I lean on you when the world's astray. I left my heart open so you hear my prayer. I left my heart open so you hear my prayer. I lean on you and I've lost my way. I keep holding on for a better day. I lean on you when the world's astray. I left my heart open so you hear my prayer. I left my heart open so you hear my
Hello, everyone. Tonight we've got Allie, aka Twisted Halo, with us. Show her some love in the chat. Give her some hearts.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, Michelle. Salty Fry. Hello, Flies. Hello, Heidi. And that's you, Allie. One solved. It's good to have you with us tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about the case of JonBenet Ramsey. JonBenet was a 6-year-old American beauty pageant contestant who was found murdered in the basement of her family home in Boulder, Colorado on December the 26th, 1996. The case received widespread media attention and remains one of the most infamous and controversial unsolved cases in American criminal history. Can you imagine what it was like for this child? She wakes up on Christmas Day, has breakfast with her family. She got a new bicycle that year, enjoyed her presents. They went to a party that day. She comes home, she falls asleep in the car, and that was her last Christmas. To me, that is absolutely the saddest case scenario there is. What do you think, Allie?
I agree. Yeah, it's very sad. And even worse that there's still no answers.
Absolutely. Now, throughout the years, we've all heard several um, speculations on what might have happened. Tonight, we're going to go through some of those. Some people believe her mom had something to do with it. Some people believe her little brother, who was 9 years old at the time, Bert, had something to do with it. There's people that believe that the dad had something to do with it. And then you've got the percentage that believes that it could have been a stranger. We're just going to try to touch on some of each and one of those and trying to see where y'all stand at the end of this live stream on who do you think had anything to do with the murder of JonBenet Ramsey.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that happened, and I'm going to put it on the screen here. When Patsy Ramsey woke up that morning, she said that she gave a couple different accounts of what happened. But in each one of her stories, she said as she went down the stairs, there was a ransom note. And the ransom note was asking for $118,000, which just happened to be what John Ramsey's bonus was that year. Am I correct,
Right.
Allie?
Yeah. Yep, you're correct.
Allie, would you like to read what the ransom note said?
I sure will. Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small, foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence earlier pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory, this is signed, Victory, SBTC.
Okay, now one thing about that note is they determined that the ransom note was wrote on a legal pad that was found in the home. Now that's one reason that we found that they thought that Patsy Mia had something to do with it. There is a few clips that we're gonna play and kind of give our opinions on it. Just a second,
Yeah.
y'all. I got kids in the house. Give me just a second. I apologize. Just a second.
You're good.
Okay. Okay. Let me know if you all can hear the volume or the audio in it. Can you hear it, Allie?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
It's the haunting last video of little JonBenet Ramsey singing Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. The date is December 22nd, 1996, just 3 days before she was brutally murdered. She's performing at a local mall where she plays a toy saxophone and gets a warm round of applause from the shoppers. Tragically, JonBenet would be murdered at Christmas, her happiest time of the year. Christmas was magical in the Ramsey home. Here's a beaming JonBenet with her brother Burke. The family made this elaborate video in 1994.
This is JonBenet. She's 4.
Patsy Ramsey speaks to friends and family while JonBenet plays with 2 stuffed animals.
We'd like to welcome you to our home.
Patsy then gives a tour of the house, showing off the lavish decorations with different Christmas trees in every room. And here's JonBenet's bedroom, done all in pink, with her very own Christmas tree. This is her stunning playroom.
The original built-in cabinet contains JonBenet's collection of Maude Humphrey figurines.
Now, one thing that we can tell is that Patsy loved Christmas. She decorated her home. I've heard there was different Christmas trees in each room with a different theme. She even went as far as to give tours of her home at Christmas. So that's something I want y'all to remember as you go through this. There was strangers that was often in this home.
Crystal, you still got the ransom note. You got the ransom note covering the thing, covering your screen.
Well, bless my heart. Forgive me, y'all. Sorry about that. So sorry.
You're good now. You're good.
Just a second.
Hello, I'm Chris.
Okay, wrong one.
Storybook.
Complete with a collection of whimsical ornaments collected from all around the world.
JonBenet's big brother Burke and their father John recently spoke about that tragic Christmas on Dr. Phil.
Do you remember what you did that morning?
I remember peeking down, and I remember seeing like an electric train and a bike, and I was super excited.
Was JonBenet with you?
Yeah.
Did she peek too?
Yeah, I think so.
Of course, Dr. Phil, you know they both peaked, but right here is the bicycle that she got for Christmas that year, y'all.
She got a big dollhouse. We both got bikes.
JonBenet got a doll for Christmas, right?
Patsy had sent the doll company a picture of JonBenet, and they made a doll that supposedly looked like her. Patsy saw the doll lying in a box. She said it looked like JonBenet was in a coffin.
Oh my goodness. I didn't notice that before. Did you, Michelle?
No, I didn't notice it either.
That's something strange to say because, okay, we all know what it's like to get our kids Christmas presents. We wrap those presents. So,
yeah,
I mean, that means before JonBenet ever opened it, she'd seen that doll in the box, and then to make that comment,
yeah,
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
After JonBenet was put to bed on Christmas night, the Christmas magic turned into a family nightmare. John Ramsey discovered JonBenet's lifeless body in a basement storeroom. He carried her up and placed her in front of the living room Christmas tree, the one seen in this crime scene photograph. 20 years later, we are still looking for answers. Who killed JonBenet?
Okay, what did you all think about that interview?
I do find it a
What do
little
you think?
strange that Burke was smiling, but yeah, if you look at photos of him when he was younger, he was always smiling too. At her funeral, he was smiling. I'm not sure if that's like a nervous thing or what, but I do think it's a little odd, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it could very well be a nervous tick, because I know my son, every time he would get in trouble, he would laugh.
Yeah.
When he first got his license, he wrecked one of my vehicles, and the officer didn't understand why my son was standing there laughing. Well, it wasn't because he thought it was funny. It was because he was scared to death I was going to pitch a fit. So
Right.
it could have been a nervous habit that he had. This next interview, though, is something that, to me, for a kid to come up with these details would be hard.
Yeah, I agree.
I would think that the kid would about have to be listening to, they're mowing outside, you all, if you can hear anything in the background. I would think that the kid would have had to either hear it or be there. But again, I mean, a lot of things in this case, and this last interview is that's the kicker, but let's watch this one.
The murder of 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey captivated the nation and put her family under the microscope, with many speculating that her father, mother, brother, or all three were involved in her killing. Tonight, her brother Burke speaks after 20 years of silence about that painful saga, and new evidence is brought to light. Here's my Nightline co-anchor, Juju Chang.
I remember the casket was small and her eyes were closed. I think one of her eyes was a little bit like droopy or something. I thought that was weird.
How did you feel seeing her?
A lot of sadness. I don't think I really fully grasped, like, after this, I won't.
And I get that.
Yeah, I agree.
He was 9 years old. I mean, I get it that he didn't grasp that after this he wouldn't ever see her again. To me, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
See her again.
Burke Ramsey, now 29, breaking a 20-year silence, coming out of the shadows to speak publicly for the first time about his sister JonBenet's murder in an interview with Dr. Phil.
The next thing I remember, my dad came and told me JonBenet is in heaven now, and he started crying. Then I started crying.
He was just 9 when his little sister was found viciously strangled in the basement of their own home. The child beauty queen, eternally 6 years old, whose gruesome, unsolved murder became America's fixation. Two competing theories lingered for years. Did an intruder break in and kill? Or were the Ramseys themselves somehow responsible? Burke, who was reportedly paid for the interview.
And that is still the only theories that people have today. I do got kind of a different theory. I'll share it with you all here in a little bit. I think it's a possibility. Is it what happened? I don't know. I'm theorizing just like everybody else. But we'll talk about that in just a second.
Is the only family member in the house the night of the murder who's never come forward with his side of the story.
Did you hit your sister over the head with a baseball bat or a flashlight?
Absolutely not.
Burke says he stayed in bed for hours as dozens of investigators and loved ones swarmed the house.
Critics would...
Now, to me, that would be odd. Because as a kid, if there's a bunch of people in my house, I'm probably going to want to be, if I'm scared that whoever did what is still in the house, then I'm going to be, at 9, I would have wanted to be around my parents. To me, and if you didn't know what was going on and there's commotion in your house, still, as a kid, I'm going to want to go see. But I was that kind of kid. I would have wanted to be in the middle of the attention anyway. That's just how I was.
Yep.
Say
Absolutely.
you weren't curious because you already knew. He didn't have to get up and go check because he knew exactly what had happened.
I mean, I didn't know if there was some bad guy downstairs and my dad was chasing off with a gun.
Everyone looks at the interview of Burke and thinks, why is this young man smiling?
I don't see a smile as much as I see an uncomfortable facial expression. But I don't see that as smile, happy smile. I see that.
You know, and I've even heard people, I watched body languages or people that study body language before we did this live. And a lot of them was saying, you know, the smile thing could have actually came from the beauty pageants. You know, he observed Patsy telling JonBenet, you know, to smile and stuff. I don't know about that, but it was a theory.
That is uncomfortable guy.
ABC's chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams, spent years.
And when solved, I would agree with that. Burke has been shielded from the case by his family. If I'm being completely honest, though, I think I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
If it was my kid. But yeah, he was shielded from this case.
Years covering the saga.
Burke Ramsey has been one of the most sought after interviews by every news and tabloid organization out there. Because back at the time, people were saying, oh, maybe Burke did it, or what does Burke know?
At the time, the incessant media attention smothered the family under a cloud of suspicion. Then 9-year-old Burke was not immune. Years later, John Ramsey, JonBenet and Burke's father, told me that they were simply trying to protect their 9-year-old from the media onslaught.
There was one day when he and Patsy managed to escape the paparazzi, and they made it to a grocery store, and there was a headline that Burke...
Brother did it.
And he burst into tears.
Yeah,
well, what was his reaction?
Well, Burke's a very quiet, private person. We tried very hard to keep Burke's life normal, and that just was like a huge interruption to that.
The mystery began the morning after Christmas 20 years ago with a horrifying ransom note left in the Ramsey home, demanding $118,000 in exchange for the safe return of their little girl.
What's going on there, ma'am? We were kidnapped. Hurry, please explain to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left in our coffee card.
But soon, John Ramsey, JonBenet's father, found her lifeless body in the basement, a moment he told me about in 2012.
When I found her, it was a rush of relief. And then, of course, within moments, I realized that she probably was dead. But she was back in my arms.
The family home, hours after the discovery, captured in these crime scene videos, seen for the first time in an investigation discovery docuseries airing this week. JonBenet had been strangled with a garrote, her skull fractured, and there were signs of sexual abuse. At first, investigators found no apparent signs of a break-in, and the Ramsey family came under the investigative microscope. Burke, too, placed under the harsh lights of the interrogation room.
When was the last time?
Now, to me, this interview was strange.
Saw JonBenet alive.
As seen in these newly discovered tapes of police interviews, included in an A&E documentary, the theory was that Burke killed her accidentally, and the family was covering up the crime. Inside the Ramsey home, a flashlight, heavy enough to be a murder weapon. The strangulation device made from the broken handle of Patsy's paintbrush. The bizarre ransom note was found to have been written on Patsy's notepad.
The ransom note is the single most important piece of evidence that led the authorities to think it had to be someone in the house.
I.e. John and Patsy Ramsey.
Because who else would have the time, they would say, to write that intricate note and practice it beforehand, other than someone trying to cover up a crime?
The police play hardball, bluffing about the evidence they have.
We have trace evidence that appears to link you to the death of JonBenet.
And people, this is proof that they, in a interrogation, they can lie to you.
Oh, yeah.
But Patsy never wavered, always adamant about their innocence.
Go back to the damn drawing board. I didn't do it. John Ramsey didn't do it, and we didn't have a clue of anybody who did it.
That's weird. Why did she call him by his name? Why didn't she say,
Right.
I didn't do it, or my husband
Didn't do it. Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, y'all. I pay attention to words, and I mean that to me that's odd.
Yeah, it is odd.
If that was me, I can see me being angry if they are only pointing their finger at me. But I'm not going to say my husband's name. I mean, I'm not going to call him by name. I'm probably going to say I didn't do it. My youngin didn't do it, and my husband didn't do it. I don't know.
Right.
It just seems odd.
Outside the Ramseys' home, a constant crush of cameras.
Looking back on it, it looks like madness. But at the time, we were so crushed by the loss of our child that it didn't matter.
John and Patsy Ramsey were never charged with the crime, but were nonetheless skewered in the court of public opinion.
This is the first time that you've sat for an extended interview.
They eventually tried to set the record straight with Barbara Walters.
Mr. Ramsey, did you kill JonBenet?
No, I did not.
Mrs. Ramsey, did you kill your daughter?
No, I did not kill my daughter.
But if not the Ramseys, then who did it?
JonBenet was a pedophile's dream come true.
Lou Smit, the late detective who was brought in by the Boulder District Attorney's Office to conduct an independent investigation, believed a sexual predator killed JonBenet.
I believe he brought her down to the farthest, deepest part of that basement and did very brutal things to her.
Smit uncovered evidence that had reportedly been overlooked by the Boulder police. A broken window where the killer could have entered. A footprint, marks on JonBenet, indicative of a stun gun.
Put a 1 in chat if you think the police dropped the ball on this right off Jump Street.
That was a little parade in Charlevoix.
When I spoke to John Ramsey in 2012, he had a lingering sense of regret. Child beauty pageants made him uncomfortable, and he told me if he had another chance, he wouldn't let JonBenet compete publicly.
Were you naive about letting her compete in pageants?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But your lesson was, what if we inadvertently exposed her to the killer?
Obviously, you don't want to keep them locked in the house, but
think about that. They are scrutinized because she was in beauty pageants. And this is back in 1996, you all. Now, predators, they don't have to go to beauty pageants to see your kids. 98% of the time, people put their kids right on the internet. They post them every day. These people have access to your children if you're putting their pictures on your Facebook or on your Instagram, what have you.
That's right.
An awareness. Not everyone around you is a nice, good person.
A re-examination of the DNA evidence using new technology found an unidentified male's DNA on JonBenet's underpants, essentially clearing the Ramsey family.
This is the only case where I think I have fundamentally turned as much as I have, thinking probably to no way over the course of an intense investigation.
The new district attorney, Mary Lacey, took the extraordinary step of formally.
You know, I would have to agree with him on that because I have went from thinking Burke did it to Patsy did it to John did it to an intruder did it. I mean, I have went down every one of those rabbit holes. This is the one case that has flip-flopped the most with me out of all the cases that I've looked at.
Yeah. I do find it a little...
But vindicate.
What's that?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I find... Oh, no, you're fine. I do think it's strange. This is just, my thinking that, the ligature that was around her neck that was made from a part of Patsy's paintbrush. Unless
Yes.
her art supplies were left out somewhere in the basement for like an intruder to have come across, it would have had to have been someone in the house that knew where they were.
And in the same sense, that device that was made, I would think, and you know, me and you talked about this earlier today, I would think that, you know, as far as a 9-year-old goes, that's not really something they would have thought of, not to make that device to strangle her with.
Right.
Revelation didn't come soon enough for the Ramseys. Patsy died from ovarian cancer in 2006. Today, John is remarried and lives a quiet life in Michigan.
I struggled a lot with forgiveness and what that meant. The first phase was, I can't forgive this creature. You know, let me get my hands on him. We won't need a trial.
No one would blame you for being angry and bitter.
And I was for a time, absolutely. But you can't stay there, and because it's damaging to you as a person.
I would. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. I would stay there. I would spend the rest of my days, and I know coming from me, this may sound odd, but I would spend the rest of my days not just wanting justice, but I would want revenge as a parent. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I know me. So not being angry and staying there, I don't understand that. I would be.
Yeah.
It's a gift you give yourself to let it go.
As for Burke, he's now a software engineer and once again back in the headlines.
It's sort of surprising that Burke gave up his anonymity.
And I think in retrospect, it was probably a mistake. I don't think he came across that well, even though he's totally innocent.
And yet 20 years later, JonBenet's case, still an unsolved murder. The Boulder police chief releasing this video statement.
We remain focused on this investigation and finding justice for JonBenet.
Her murder remains America's great whodunit mystery, still haunting the public imagination.
The notion that these rich parents might have killed their child was an amazing question / soap opera / mystery.
And it was.
And it still is. Like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this from all angles. Now, in one of the articles that I saw, JonBenet had pineapple in her stomach. It hadn't been digested. Bert had pineapple that day. Now, we got to keep in mind that she had went to a party, a Christmas party. They stopped at, I think it was 3 friends' house, wasn't it, Allie?
Yes.
And she
the neighbors. Mm-hmm.
And she fell asleep on the way home, and John packed her in. So in order for the pineapple not to be digested and still be in her stomach, sorry about that, y'all, but they were thinking that she would have to get up and have got a bite of that pineapple. Again, one of the things that makes me think that Bert didn't do it was the device itself that was used to strangle her with. But the fact that in his interview when he was 9, he was like doing the motion of what it'd be like to hit somebody in the head with a hammer, I also find that strange. But later there was a investigator that came out and she did an interview. Now, when I watched this interview, it really said volumes. So we are going to go over this interview and then we'll kind of discuss what you all think and what me and Allie thinks.
Stan Klein in New York, and welcome to a special edition of Time Tunnel. With the JonBenet Ramsey murder back in the headlines, today we travel back to 1999, 3 years after the 6-year-old was strangled. ABC's Elizabeth Vargas talked with Linda Arndt, the Colorado detective who first handled the case, and she had her own suspicions about who the killer was.
JonBenet. Oh, hello.
Nearly 3 years after the murder of JonBenet Ramsey, the case remains unsolved. But the detective who first handled the case has no questions about who is guilty.
I know who killed
Hello, Lori. It's good to have you here.
JonBenet. There's no doubt in my mind who killed JonBenet. And while this investigation is still ongoing, I don't think it's appropriate that I say that name out loud.
Linda Arndt was the first detective on the scene at the Ramsey house.
I will say, I think she says the name without saying the name. What do you think, Allie?
Yes, I agree.
On December 26, 1996, the morning John and Patsy Ramsey had reported their 6-year-old daughter JonBenet missing. Arndt was the only officer there for much of the day. She later would be roundly criticized, vilified in the press as responsible for a bungled investigation. Now she's speaking out to set the record straight, telling her side of that dramatic day 3 years ago. It all began with a call at 6:30 in the morning from her sergeant.
He said there's been a kidnapping. It involves a 6-year-old girl. There was a ransom note, a 2.5-page ransom note. And according to the ransom note, there was going to be a phone call from the author, and they were supposed to call between 8 and 10 a.m. So I was supposed to get to the house for purposes of monitoring the phone call.
8:10 a.m. Arndt arrived at the Ramsey home and meets John Ramsey for the first time.
How did he strike you?
Cordial.
Cordial?
Mm-hmm.
Upset?
Cordial.
Distraught?
Cordial.
Did it strike you at all that that was behavior that was unusual for somebody whose child was just kidnapped?
It's been my experience that people respond to trauma in different ways. So
Okay, so she says at 8:10 she shows up. The ransom note said that the abductor would call at 10 with instructions. I think it says volume a lot that the only thing that she would say was cordial. She didn't think that that was normal. Right here, she's trying to say that people respond to trauma in different ways, which I agree wholeheartedly. But listen to what else she says.
Someone has a response that is different from mine. I don't put judgment to it. I'll just note it.
And that is what she says she did all morning, make mental notes of all things curious, including, she says, the fact that Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey remained apart in separate rooms for most of the day. That at one point, she says John Ramsey took time out in the middle of the crisis to read his mail.
Now, to me, that is very odd.
Yeah,
if
that's...
my child is missing and I don't know where it is, first of all, I'm going to cling to my husband for comfort. We're probably not going to leave each other's side. But he's looking through the mail?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Allie, do you think the mail is anything that you're going to think of? I mean,
No.
are you going to be worried about your bills if your kid went missing?
Hell no.
I remember seeing John in the kitchen, looking through his mail, and I made a note that he was looking at his mail, and then I wondered, where did your mail come from?
Isn't it possible maybe he was opening the mail looking for a clue from the kidnapper?
I don't know. And I don't speculate. It's a piece of information that I see. It's something that I know.
You thought it was unusual, however.
I can say that it stuck out.
10 a.m., the deadline imposed by the writer of the ransom note for a telephone call.
10 o'clock comes and goes, and there's no acknowledgement within the house from anyone that the deadline imposed by the author of the ransom note is come and gone.
Nobody said it's 10 o'clock and the kidnappers haven't called?
Nobody said that.
Was that something else you took note of?
Absolutely.
By 10:30 in the morning, Arndt was the only police...
Okay. To me, that is very, very strange. Because if I was expecting a call, and let's remember, because Allie read that ransom note, they gave detail. You know, if you so much as talk to the dog, she's going to lose her head. So if 10 o'clock came and they had not called, I'm going to be panicking. Yeah. I'm going to think, do they know I called the law? Or, I mean, I'm going to be at a level 10. But the time passed and they didn't even realize it or didn't acknowledge it at all. To me, that's not normal behavior. What do you think, Allie?
No, it's not normal behavior at all. I agree. And I'm
Hey,
sorry,
Carl.
but looking through your mail, Unsolved, I get what you're saying about looking through the mail for other correspondences, but why? How do you know that's what he was doing? Because he said that? That doesn't mean that's what he was doing.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. The biggest thing is to me at this point, just watching these, 10 o'clock's passed and they're not freaking out. And it's passed without them. And if I was a officer and I was observing that, I would be thinking, are they not freaking out because they knew nobody was going to call at 10 o'clock?
Right.
Officer in the house with John and Patsy Ramsey, their pastor, and 4 family friends. As they waited for news, the tension was mounting. Arndt called her station house for backup repeatedly, but none had arrived.
How many times did you call the police department asking where your backup was and what was going on?
Well, I remember at least 2 calls. Both times I was told everybody's in a meeting. They got your message, and that was it.
Were you feeling pressure being in charge of a group this large and with anxiety that high?
I felt tremendous pressure.
1:01 p.m. Although the house had already been searched by patrolmen before she arrived, Arndt says that in order to bring...
I agree, Unsolved. Earlier, I asked you all to put a 1 in chat if you think that if they dropped the ball right off of Jump Street with this case. I think they did. I don't think he should have been searching the house.
No, I don't either.
She asked John Ramsey and his friend Fleet White to search the house again, top to bottom, looking for anything out of place. She says she gave them specific instructions not to touch anything. She says John Ramsey headed straight to the basement. She heard Fleet White scream for an ambulance, and then a chilling discovery.
To me, that's strange. You've had patrols. Now, the fact that the patrol officers had already searched this house and missed the room that was in the basement tells me how massive this house was. But
Yes.
At the same time, to me, it's strange that he goes straight to her.
Yeah, that is weird.
The pieces of the puzzle fell into place.
And I see John Ramsey carrying JonBenet up the last 3 steps from the basement. And my mind exploded. And everything that I had noted that morning that stuck out instantly made sense. And JonBenet was clearly dead. Then she's been dead for a while. I ordered him to put JonBenet down. I knelt next to her and I leaned down to her face. And John leaned down opposite me. And his face was just inches from mine. And we had
I completely agree, Carl, because I have got a somewhat theory on this now, don't I, Allie? That's a little bit different, but
yes.
But yeah, the world was a lot more simpler back in 1996.
Nonverbal exchange that I will never forget. And he asked if she was dead. And I said, yes, she's dead. And I told him to go back to the room and to dial 911. And as we looked at each other, I remember, and I wore a shoulder holster, tucking my gun right next to me and consciously counting, I've got 18 bullets.
Why did you do that?
Because I didn't know if we'd all be alive when people showed up. I said everything made sense in that instance.
See, in my opinion, she just said who she thinks it was. And one thing, or as far as I know, the Ramseys never sued her. I mean, in my opinion, right here, she's saying she thought it was John Ramsey. Now,
Yeah,
if they had the money to sue her for defamation, why didn't they?
That's a good point.
And I knew what happened.
Do you think your fear was well-founded?
You bet I do. There's no doubt in my mind.
To this day?
Never wavered.
See, she's not saying it's her opinion. She's not saying, I just felt like. she's saying this like it's a definite to her. So again, I mean, if you all know of them suing her, let me know. But I've not heard that they sued her.
You were afraid because you thought the killer was still in the house.
I knew it.
Absolutely?
Absolutely.
1:10 p.m., Detective Arndt moved JonBenet's body from the hallway to the living room.
John Ramsey came back into the living room, and he grabbed a throw that was on the back of a chair, and he says, could you please cover her body? And as he's saying it, he's already put the blanket on top of her.
Arndt would later be harshly criticized for two key decisions, asking John Ramsey to search the house and allowing John Ramsey to place the blanket on JonBenet's body.
Okay, now let's think about this. In the time that we've heard about so far, they have called. She showed up at 10 minutes after 8. And they have also called their pastor, friends. I mean, a lot of people are in this house. And now he's put a throw over top of her body. In my opinion, this is where we still make a mistake. This is where law enforcement still gets it wrong. When a kid is missing from its home, they're looking at it as a missing child. I think that the house should be locked down and considered a crime scene from the moment that call comes in.
Absolutely.
But that don't happen. It didn't happen in this case. So everything's being contaminated. You've got people in the house walking around. You've got amateurs looking and searching the house. I mean, I absolutely think that this case was mishandled from Jump Street. And I think a lot of cases are still being mishandled.
Yeah. You had to know that that was going to contaminate evidence.
JonBenet's body was in and of itself a crime scene. Would it be nice if John hadn't found JonBenet? Absolutely. And would it be nice if he hadn't put a blanket? Yeah, it would be great. And it would be nice if there were other people to help control and keep people away. That would have been wonderful. But that's not the circumstances that I had available that day.
Still alone in the living room with John Ramsey, Arndt then heard Patsy Ramsey's voice.
And I heard a wail, just up.
Now, listen to how she describes Patsy's reaction. From just how she describes it, it sounds like she was devastated.
Guttural moan, aching wail from the back area. It's probably one of the most pitiful things I've ever heard, and anguished. And I saw the rest of the people, the Patsy and the pastor and the 4 friends, come with them towards the living room. So I said, if you want to say goodbye to JonBenet, this is the only time you'll have to do it.
And this I do not understand.
And, there's just so much.
I don't understand why the pastor had any say on what went on around her body, period. I mean, she just said JonBenet's body was a crime scene. Well, in my opinion, the whole house is a crime scene, not just the body. So why are you letting the pastor tell people if you're wanting to say goodbye to her, this is the last chance you're going to get? To me, that makes no sense. Especially if you're scared to death and don't think none of you are going to make it out.
Yeah.
There's so much pain. And I called 911. I get my radio number. And I said, the kidnapping has turned into a murder.
This house had suddenly become a homicide crime scene.
Oh, it became hell. JonBenet was brought up.
And I was telling Allie, did you notice how did you notice how she bypassed that? She knew that house was a crime scene, but that's not what she calls it.
Yeah.
If she would have said, yes, that house became a crime scene, I mean, then she knows everything they're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
About 5 minutes after 1. And at 10 after 1, nobody had shown up. And I looked out the window to the street and I saw an ambulance slowly drive by. And I thought, I am in the Twilight Zone.
Meanwhile, the pastor led the Ramseys and their friends in prayer in the living room, holding hands as JonBenet's body lay before them.
I thought that would be the best way.
Okay. Why? Why are they holding hands? And I asked Allie this earlier. Circled around a baby's corpse. There's not a prayer going to bring her back. I mean, I could understand them being in another room praying with the family. But why are they standing around this baby like that?
Yeah.
Again, you all, she's already said JonBenet's body was a crime scene. My opinion, the whole house is. But why are they letting these people all stand around her and have a prayer vigil right there?
Yeah.
To organize everyone, to keep them distracted, to keep them from touching JonBenet, and to keep them focused on something other than looking at JonBenet.
1:20 p.m. After 3 hours as the only officer on what Arndt calls an incredibly tense crime scene, and 20 minutes after JonBenet's body was found, backup finally arrived.
3 hours. 3 hours. Yeah. She is the only officer there.
The next day, the autopsy on JonBenet was conducted. Linda Arndt was there.
I hadn't seen savagery done to a child or even an adult until...
Now, I do want to acknowledge they're probably meaning she's the only investigator there because they've already told us that patrol was there. Remember?
Yeah.
Because patrol searched the house and then she asked John Ramsey to look again, see if they may have missed something. Again, y'all, think about how massive this house was.
The doctor peeled back her scalp and saw that horrific fracture to her head. It was the length of her head.
It was 8.5 inches long, and there was something else even more disturbing.
She had trauma to her vagina.
What kind of trauma?
Pay attention here.
It would be trauma that would be consistent with injuries seen in sexual assault cases.
Recently?
I guess the best way to say that was what was seen was not a first time.
Read that screen. What was seen was not the first time. Now, I understand she's an investigator. But listen what the medical examiner says.
Injury.
The coroner, in fact, said the evidence was inconclusive, but ABC News has confirmed that 3 medical experts who consulted for the Boulder Police Department concluded the injuries were consistent with prior sexual abuse. As the Ramsey investigation dragged on for weeks, then months, and then years, the criticism of Linda Arndt's actions that December day continued. But she still defends her actions, saying she has become a scapegoat for a flawed investigation.
Now, if that was the truth, if that was a fact, that wasn't the first time that happened to that kid, that makes you wonder, could John Ramsey have been responsible?
Yes.
But you also had some examiners say that it was inconclusive, but 3 said that all signs showed, prior. I'm trying to word this correct. I don't want them to take the video down. But that does make you wonder what this kid went through before this day, if that is a fact.
Right.
And Linda Arndt remains convinced that she knows who killed JonBenet Ramsey. She will not say the killer's name, but has no doubt that justice will never be done.
Do you think this person will ever be indicted, will ever be charged or convicted?
No.
What you're saying is, whoever killed JonBenet will get away with murder.
Yes.
That was nice.
And so far, they have. because here it is, 2024, and nobody has been charged with her murder yet. Let me look at the chat. I mean, like I said, I have went even through looking at these videos, I go backwards and forward. Now, what are you all's opinion? I'm gonna tell you a theory that I have. That's interesting. One solved. Because I mean, I didn't know that, but
She had been to the doctor 30 times in 3 years. Why would she need to go to the doctor 30 times in 3 years?
did she have a medical condition that we're not
Right. I mean,
aware
that's
of?
what I'm wondering. Why would she?
Okay. Now this is just a theory, but this is something that I've thought of. It doesn't make it a fact. It doesn't make it anything like that. But this was 1996. Now, one thing that we know, JonBenet was in all these beauty pageants. She had been riding her bike on Christmas Day because that's what she got for Christmas. Some interviews say that she was saw riding her bike in front of her house. And this is a huge home. Patsy loved Christmas. She didn't just send out cards. She sent out videos celebrating Christmas. Her whole home was decorated for Christmas to the point that she did tours. She let strangers, and I'm not blaming her, I'm just saying, she let strangers come into her home to tour her house at Christmas. Now, in my home, I'm in every room every day, but I'm not living in no mansion like this either. Now, when the cops came in and they were searching the house, they missed that room that JonBenet was in. Again, that tells you how massive this home was. Now, you think back to the Golden State Killer, who would go into people's home and he would study them from inside their home. It makes me wonder, could somebody have been on one of those tours and hid in that home? And hear me out here. If they're inside the home, then no doubt they knew what kind of bonus that he got for Christmas. The stub was probably laying around. They would have been able to got her paintbrush to make the, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce it right, but the thing to strangle her with. They would have had access to the notebook to write the letter. They were gone all day on Christmas. So, what if the plan was to kidnap her? But maybe she was making too much noise. And they ended up hitting her over the head. What if JonBenet got up and saw that pineapple in the bowl on the kitchen counter and got a piece of it and they grabbed her from there?
Yep.
I mean, That year, she didn't want, they usually have a Christmas party. They didn't want to have a Christmas party, but they did have a Christmas party that year. Yep. The Ramseys had a small Christmas party at their house on the 23rd. On the
Yes, they did.
24th, they went to twilight service. I mean, it's something to think about. If somebody back then, they didn't have cameras like they do now. Everybody went and rocking a doorbell camera. Only a few would have had alarm systems, and they was not even equipped like our alarm systems is now. My alarm system goes off, it'll call the law for me. Or if it's a fire, it'll call the fire department for me. But back then, an alarm system was mostly just noise, you all. Now, let's also keep in mind, they did find a window broke.
Yep. Also, they did find that door to the basement. I just want to put this out there. But because they were looking for an exit route for the kidnappers to have used, and they stated that they ruled that out as an exit route because of where the latch was located on the door. They wouldn't have been able to open it from inside.
And over the years, we've had a lot of people try to come out and say, there was a man that came out and said that he did it. But there was DNA took that did not match any of the family members, and it didn't match this man either. I think that one of the saddest things about this case is they did so many things wrong, and today they're still doing some of those things wrong. It would be awesome if they would, take notes about what not to do. I mean, I, for one, think that if a kid goes missing from their home, they need to right then and there consider that whole home a crime scene. We saw in so many cases where that did not happen. The family was still allowed to stay in the home. Well, that happened here, and listen to the activity that happened even after they found her body.
Right.
There were also 2 doors found ajar that morning. The butler pantry door, crime scene photos. See, I've looked at a lot of like documentaries and stuff over the years on this case, but I'll be honest with you, when I did the poll to do this, I had to refresh in my mind on the case. I know Allie did too. But this little girl needs justice. I believe wholeheartedly someone knows what happened.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, I do remember hearing that Unsolved, that neighbors on both sides of the Ramseys saw odd lights on off that they had never seen that way before.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Just by curiosity, because it seems like you've really looked into this case a lot too, Unsolved Mystery. What do you think happened to her? What do you think the most likely thing is that happened? It's just so strange. And why did Dad want to check the basement again? And then, well,
that's a good point. I mean,
and didn't she say she told him to see if they had missed anything?
Yes. Yeah, she
Yeah.
did. Unsolved said 250% intruder getting revenge against John.
And he worked for a big corporation. It very well
Yeah.
could have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just a second, Dutchie. Let me check it. Oh, just a second. Hey, Allie, can you grab that from Discord and put it in back chat? It's taking I'd have to load my Discord from here to be able to look at it.
Yeah, hang on. You want me to just put it in chat here, Crystal?
Put it in the back chat. Private chat.
Okay.
That way I can put it to the notepad and pull it up.
Oh, shoot. I'm on my tablet, so I can't drop it without, so I don't have Discord on my tablet. It's on my phone.
Okay. Here we go.
Did you get it?
Just a minute. That you want to come up and drop it? I'll share your screen. I'm trying to get my Discord to load, but I can't. Where it's trying to storm. A few of John's enemies profited greatly from his loss.
Well, I've got it pulled up, so I'm reading the autopsy report.
Okay, read that to us.
Okay, some of these words I might not be able to pronounce properly. I'm just saying.
Girl, have you heard me talk? I'm country as cornbread. We ain't worried about that.
Okay. Final diagnosis, ligature strangulation, circumferential ligature with associated ligature furrow of neck, abrasions and petechial hemorrhages on neck, petechial hemorrhages, conjunctival surfaces of eyes and skin of face, craniocerebral injuries, scalp contusion, linear comminuted fracture of right side of skull, linear pattern of contusions of right cerebral hemisphere, subarachnoid and subdural hemorrhage, small contusions, tips of temporal lobes, abrasion of right cheek, abrasion contusion posterior right shoulder, abrasions of left lower back and posterior left lower leg, abrasion and vascular congestion of vaginal mucosa, ligature of right wrist, no drugs detected, no ethanol detected. And then it just gives the description from the pathologist, like his report.
And if you keep scrolling down, it actually has a lot more information. It goes into like the external exam. You can click on all kinds of other stuff. But if you just keep scrolling, it'll have like, I thought it was really
Is it
interesting.
on
I
the
didn't know if
screen?
that would. Yes. Okay, I'm leaving now. Love y'all.
Love you, Dutchie.
Love you.
It sounds like she was alive for most of this. I hate to even say that, but a 61.
It's just awful.
Let me see here. Let's see if we can find the pineapple. Hmm. You want to read that right there? Can you see it, Allie?
Let me see. Hang on. Yeah, you want me to read that part?
Yeah.
All right. Upon reflection of the scalp, there is found. Oh, hang on. I don't know where it went. Okay, there we go. Oh, go back up, Crystal. A little more.
Okay, is that it?
Sorry, it kicked me out. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, is that the right spot here? Let me see here.
Oh yeah. You want me to read what's in the GI tract?
Yeah.
Oh, it keeps going up. Hold on, let me see if I can get it on my thing. Hang on. All right.
Mine keeps jumping too. I think it's because it's the Denver Post and they want me to subscribe to it.
Yeah, hang on, let me find it. GI tract. The esophagus is empty. It is lined by gray-white mucosa. The stomach contains a small amount of viscous to green to tan-colored thick mucus material without particulate matter identified. The gastric mucosa is otolized but contains no areas of hemorrhage or ulceration. The yellow to light green tan apparent vegetable or fruit material, which may represent fragments of pineapple. No hemorrhage is identified. The remainder of the small intestine is unremarkable. The large intestine contains soft green fecal matter. The appendix is present.
Okay, so this being in the GI tract is why they thought that she had ate the pineapple after she got home. Okay, and read about the skull and brain.
Upon reflection of the scalp, there is found to be an extensive area of scalp hemorrhage along the right tempoparietal, I can't say that, area extending from the orbital ridge posteriorly all the way to the occipital area. This encompasses an area measuring approximately 7 by 4 inches. This grossly appears to be fresh hemorrhage with no evidence of organization. At the superior extension of the area of hemorrhage is a linear to comminuted skull fracture, which extends from the right occipital to posterior parietal area forward to the right frontal area of the skull. This fracture measures approximately 8.5 inches in length. On removal of the skull cap, there is found to be a thin film of subdural hemorrhage measuring approximately 7 to 8 cc's over the surface of the right cerebral hemisphere and extending to the base of the cerebral hemisphere. The 1450 gram grain has a normal overall architecture. Mild narrowing of the sulci and flattening of the gyri are seen. No inflammation is identified. There is a thin film of subarachnoid hemorrhage overlying the entire right cerebral hemisphere. On the right cerebral hemisphere, underlying the previously mentioned linear skull fracture, is an extensive linear area of purple contusion extending from the right frontal area. Good Lord. I think I just took like a medical class.
But do you think that a 9-year-old could do that? I mean, maybe
No.
with a hammer, but I mean, I just don't. I don't see how they could. I want to see about right here.
Oh, that part? Okay.
Electronic information, the smallest piece of tissue from 7 in position at the vaginal wall. Hymen contains its surfaces.
Thank you, Casey. I was struggling there for a minute.
I don't see anything like it like old. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That breaks my heart.
I know.
Oh, just say it. That's very possible. I mean, it's very possible. They went to a Christmas party. JonBenet could have ate, you know, if there was like other food, like fruits. It would. She could have ate something they didn't know at that party. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know that I was going to ask you to read, Allie. I can't stand to read out loud.
It's fine.
Well,
Yeah, Casey, that's true.
yeah, the DNA throws me off. You would think, I mean, that's what cleared the Ramseys was the DNA. And when we think of the cases, we have to look at it and say, well, what evidence do we have? And if the DNA don't match them, it's obviously somebody that isn't in the house. That's what I mean. That's logical thinking, right?
Correct.
I still do believe that somebody could have hid inside that house. I think that it was big enough that somebody could have hid and they wouldn't have known that they were there. And that would have been logical. I mean, even if they had to break in because the window was broke, that would have gave them access to everything that was used in her murder. Okay, I hadn't heard that theory. But I mean, jealousy can make people do a lot of things.
Duchess said there was a lot of rage seen in the autopsy photos of her head. She said she's not seen them, but thought that was interesting observation by people who did. That's awful.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. Which we may look into this a little deeper and do a part 2 on it.
Yeah.
But I think it's always good to come back and look at these cold cases because look at the cases we see now. We get so aggravated because maybe in a month or 2 or even a year or 2, we have not got answers. Can you imagine how this family feels?
Yeah.
I mean, I personally can because there is a cold case in my family, but I know it feels hopeless. And you got to think Patsy spent a lot of her time being accused of having something to do with her own child's murder. And she died not getting answers. I mean, that's heartbreaking to me. Because I can guarantee you I would be wanting revenge, I'd be wanting justice, I'd be wanting everything. I'd be blaming everybody that came out and said that they'd been around her. I know how I'd be.
Yeah. Yep, me too.
Okay. I'm missing something in chat. Let me see here. What happened?
Casey said she thought it was weird that she put the same clothes on the next day because they have money and
Yeah.
she could have changed.
Well, in one of the interviews that I watched, I saw that, and she said that she liked to wear them for 2 or 3 days. But the housekeeper also said that wherever it landed is where it stayed. So to me, that kind of contradicted all of that too. But
yeah, she did say that Patsy would just throw her clothes anywhere. That she always had to pick up after her.
Yeah,
But
pretty
yeah, in
much
the
said
time
the
of
whole Ramsey family did that.
yeah. But I mean, I would probably be, not really worried about what I'm putting on, what clothes I'm wearing if my kid's the very next day that my kid was just.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But at that point, she didn't know she was missing in one of the stories
That's
that
true.
she said.
Yeah.
Which I found odd because I am a coffee drinker. And when I wake up, I mean, yeah, I'm going to go straight down and put the coffee on. But according to one story that she said, she got up, put on a light thing of makeup, the clothes she had on the night before, and then went down to make coffee. And I mean, to me, that seemed a little out of sorts because I know how I am. I want my coffee first.
Yeah.
And then I'll do everything else. I'm sure not getting makeup on before I have my coffee, but that's me, and everybody don't do things the way I do, I guess.
And maybe she was mixed up of the events too, because then she also said in an interview in April of '97 that she got up and went right into JonBenet's room first and found that she was not there and then went downstairs. So,
And I think her stories being flip-flopped so was another reason people were looking at them. But as far as DNA goes, the DNA didn't match nobody in the house. So if we're looking at the evidence, if you're strictly looking at the evidence, they went years being blamed for their own kid's murder.
Yes.
And then, DNA didn't hold up to it.
Right. I know DNA is very different nowadays, but
I do know, Matt, that there was certain parts of that house that they didn't even take pictures of. You would think every inch of that house they would have took pictures of.
Right. Yeah. They dropped the ball on that too.
Yeah. But now one of the biggest red flags to me is the fact that they even missed the room that she was in the basement when they did when the officers searched.
Right.
But again, that tells you how massive that house was.
Yeah.
Has anybody heard anything as of recent on this case?
I haven't heard anything recently. um, I think
Now
he put. Go ahead.
The last thing that I had heard was that what was that guy's name? Was his last name Bill? Anyways, the man that said that he had done it, but again, the DNA didn't match him either, so he could have just been wanting his name to go down for something.
Mm-hmm.
Officer French said he came to the door, but since it was locked from the outside with a piece of wood at the top and he was looking for an escape route, he didn't bother checking. And that's sad too, because if an officer would have found her, I mean, maybe it wouldn't have been as contaminated as it actually got.
Right.
Well, I think I've covered about everything. Is there anything that you want to add, Allie?
I don't think so. At this point, we should do some more digging and maybe do a part 2.
I think so.
Yeah.
I did want to let people know how kind of the chain of events went. The timeline is on December the 26th, 1996. That's when JonBenet was reported missing by her mother, Patsy, at 5:52 a.m. A ransom note demanded $1,800 was found on the stairs. On December the 29th, 1996, the Ramsey family flew to Atlanta, which was another thing everybody found odd. On New Year's Eve, 1996, JonBenet was buried in Georgia next to her half-sister Elizabeth, who had died in a car accident in 1992. January 1997, the Ramsey family gave DNA samples to the investigators. In their first TV interview on New Year's Day, Patsy and John stated that they believed a killer was on the loose. August 1997, the district attorney's office named Patsy and John Ramsey as the main targets of the investigation. Although John was cleared of writing the ransom note, Patsy was not. July 1997, the autopsy report showed that JonBenet was bound, strangled, and suffered a violent head injury. On March 1998, a grand jury was convened, which included a review of DNA evidence and a teddy bear found at the scene. Burke Ramsey, JonBenet's brother, was also interviewed. October 1999, I wonder why it took from December of 1996 to March of 1998 to interview Burke.
Yeah.
Anyways, October 1999, the grand jury was dismissed due to insufficient evidence. Burke Ramsey was cleared as a suspect. 2000, John and Patsy Ramsey published a book, The Death of the Innocent. 2006, Patsy Ramsey died of cancer. In 2008, the Ramsey family was cleared of suspicion through touch DNA evidence, and the Boulder authorities apologized. 2000. So 2 years after she passed away, they apologized. That didn't do her much good, did it? 2015 and 2016, John Ramsey and Burke Ramsey gave TV interviews. reiterating their innocence. On November 2022, the Boulder Police and District Attorney announced that they would be consulting with Colorado Cold Case Review Team in 2023. So maybe we'll find out something.
Yeah.
I
The
think
most
it's
recent
sad
statement that John Ramsey gave was that the Colorado police are just wanting him to die. That was his most recent statement that I just found.
oh my goodness. Think about this, though, you all. Patsy Ramsey died of cancer. And then 2 years later, after she had spent all this time being accused, the police department come out and apologize. That was an apology she never got to hear. So let's be slow to judge, because in this case, we don't know who did what. We do know that the DNA cleared them. And if we found DNA that in any of these cases, we would have to believe it, wouldn't we?
Right.
So
You're right.
I don't know, that breaks my heart. I mean, it does. Sometimes apologies come way too late. I'll say that.
That's right.
Sometimes apologies come way too late. Well, if you haven't got anything else, I haven't either, but it has sure been good to have everybody in chat. You all have been wonderful. I want to start doing some popular. I want to start doing a couple popular cold cases. Lizzie Borden is one of them. And then some that you all may not have heard about that's kind of local too, because we can get so wrapped up in these active cases that are going on that are getting plenty of attention. And just remember, there's families out there that's went years and they still haven't got answers, and their loved ones deserves the attention too. I know they may not be the popular podcast that's going on or live streams that's held, but I believe they deserve just as much of attention as these other cases as well.
I agree. And Crystal, thank you for having me up.
And also, thank you for coming up, Allie. I've enjoyed it.
Me too.
Also on Hold My Halo, you all, me and Allie's going to start doing a little reviewing, ain't we, Allie?
Yes, we are. And that'll be lots of fun.
So if you all haven't subbed up to Hold My Halo, you might want to go over and do that, because we may have some salty Saturdays. We're going to have to see. But we're also going to cover cults over there. I've always been fascinated with what makes people follow a person, and cults. And so that'll be something else we'll be doing on Hold My Halo. If you all don't care, like this video. If you're not subscribed, I really appreciate it. Don't cost you a thing. On this channel, you won't see no cash apps dropped. I won't ask you for your money, but if you'll put that touch DNA, it means everything in the world to me. Again, I appreciate Allie for being up here. She's one of my sisters. Love her to death. Her, Michelle, Dutchie. I love every one of y'all. If this is the first time you've been to my channel, I want to say thank you for joining us tonight. I think it's been very interesting. At the end of the day, you all, the only thing we can do is pray for answers.
Yes.
Remember, it takes 0 effort to be a good human being. You've actually got to put forth effort to be a bad one. Until next time, you all, I love you all.